very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1 live and direct from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Bringing you the news, I'm Jadabdin.
And I'm Sirasa. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Headlines on Newsfirst.
No political interference in cricket. New constitution to be introduced soon, assures Transformation Committee Chairman. Rupee depreciation, not a case of economic collapse, says Deputy Finance Minister. April inflation hits 4.7% as domestic tax revenue surpasses trillion mark. Namal Rajapaksa defends prison visit to Pillayan, urges legal action if linked to Easter attacks. China supplied weapons via bonded warehouse at Colombo and Galle ports during war, says former Navy Chief Kolabagay.
And on to those stories in detail. In your top story this evening, attention today turns first to a sports development.
The Sri Lanka Cricket Transformation Committee held its first media briefing, and Sandro Ferdinando is ready to bring us all the details.
Thank you, Vinuji and Shuad. So let's take a look at the sports news. The Sri Lanka Cricket Transformation Committee has held its first media briefing outlining its reform agenda and inviting public and stakeholder participation in reshaping the future of the sport. The briefing took place at Sri Lanka Cricket with Chairman Iran Wickramaratne, joined by committee members Siddharth Vettimuni, Prakash Shafter, Upul Kumara Peruma and Dinal Phillips.
The Sri Lanka Cricket Transformation Committee media briefing took place at Sri Lanka Cricket with Chairman Iran Wickramaratne attending alongside committee members Siddharth Vettimuni, Prakash Shafter, Upul Kumara Peruma and Dinal Phillips.
So one of our fundamental focuses is going to be changing the structure of management. That's a mandate given to us. And that is why we are talking about bringing a new constitution, right, into governing Sri Lanka's cricket. And we've started the process. We are now open to the public to voice their opinions, because cricket is not owned by a committee or any group of people. Cricket is not even owned by a government. It's owned by the spectators of a country. And therefore, we are very conscious of that. So we are inviting the spectators to basically, they can present their views. We're also attending all the stakeholders, from sportsmen, from cricketers, to umpires, to trainers, to administrators, to clubs, to districts, to provinces, to all the associations, all the stakeholders. The window is open that they can actually send their proposals. In the first 3 weeks, it's only 3 weeks since we were appointed, we have been basically listening and trying to understand things. In the constitutional process, after that constitution is being drafted, then it will be presented and go through the regular parliamentary process. And we are going to be getting the support of everybody, because cricket is apolitical. And therefore, we are going to get all of Parliament to basically help us to put the structure in place. It's a systems, if you want, a systems correction that we are after. So that's on one side. On the other side, parallelly, administrative and financial matters are being looked into. We want to make sure that every rupee that is spent for the advancement of the sport.
The ICC also has spoken to you all, and have they been told that this process is going to take such a long time, and because they are also not happy with interim committee running for too long?
Yeah, the discussions with the ICC have been extremely cordial and constructive, and the ICC knows exactly. We have been very open and transparent in what we are doing, and they will want us to pursue open and transparent methods in doing this.
Speaking at the event, Chairman Wickramaratne addressed the circumstances under which he was invited to lead the committee.
I was not invited here for political reasons. Otherwise, the president would have had no reason to call me. The President had worked closely with the COPE in Parliament and has been engaged in anti-corruption efforts, so there is a clear understanding of my views on combating corruption. I believe that trust is why I was invited, and I will not step back from that. There will be no room for corruption. Sri Lanka cricket has no connection to politics and cannot be connected to politics. That is why I have stepped away from political positions.
Meanwhile, committee member Siddharth Wettamuni outlined the areas of focus currently being reviewed by the committee.
We are looking at 3 key areas right now: the national team, the test team and the A team. We are assessing the issues within these teams and how they can be addressed. I also spoke to Gary Kirsten, who said there is no shortage of player talent. He said we have to harness it. In cricket, there are 3 key areas: fitness, player skill and the mental aspect. If these 3 areas function properly, everything else falls into place. That is where our focus is right now, how we can improve the situation. Once that happens, I believe you will see a difference in our cricket. Another area is under-19 coaching. As an administration, we have not given sufficient exposure to coaches. Their experience is limited. They may have passed exams, but they need to understand how to discuss the game, how to explain it, and the cause and effect processes within it. This is what we are trying to address, starting from under-19 and extending both upwards and downwards by providing that necessary exposure.
දැන් චිත්‍රසිරි කමිටුව යටතේ අලුත් ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් යෝජනා වෙච්ච එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේ ව්‍යවස්ථාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවධානයක් යොමු කරලා තියෙනවද?
දැන් මේ කමිටුවෙන් හදන්නේ ඒක නිකන් බේස් එකක් හැටියට තියාගෙන තවත් අලුත් අදහසුත් අරගෙන නව ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් දෙන්න. ඒක තමයි අපි හිතාගෙන ඉන්නේ කොහොම හරි මාස 3න් 4න් කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න ඕන කියලා.
In more sports news, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports has approved the appointment of a new selection committee for Sri Lanka cricket.
Approval was granted by the Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports in accordance with the provisions of the Sports Law number 25 of 1973 and the Extraordinary Gazette Notification number 2437/24 dated for the 21st of May 2025. The following officials have been appointed to the selection committee: Kapila Vijay Gunawardana as the chairman, Amal Silva, Brendan Kuruppu, Varuna Varagoda and Vanessa De Silva as members.
The depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee against the US dollar is not a factor contributing to an economic collapse, Deputy Minister of Finance Dr. Anil Jayanta told Parliament today. The Deputy Minister stated that the country is steadily progressing forward. Well, these remarks were made during today's parliamentary debate on the approval of several regulations under the Imports and Exports Control Act.
There is no justification to establish any correlation between exchange rate fluctuations and an economic downturn. The rise in the exchange rate must be managed effectively, and such fluctuations bring both advantages and disadvantages depending on the situation. Within this year, in addition to export earnings and foreign remittances, we expect to receive approximately $700 million from the International Monetary Fund by the 27th. Furthermore, there is potential to secure up to $480 million from the Asian Development Bank, $150 million from the World Bank, and an additional $50 million from an affiliated institution. Under these conditions, managing the situation will not pose a significant challenge. Our strategy is not to contract the economy in search of solutions. Instead, we must address these challenges within a functioning, active economy. Attempting to solve issues by shrinking the economy would lead to a crisis, as seen in some countries. The economy is not stagnant. It is moving forward. That is why all our measures aim to sustain economic activity rather than halt it. Inflation has been brought under control. While we acknowledge that price increases can occur, especially due to exchange rate pressures on imports, the key question is whether inflation can be contained. And yes, it can. In fact, it has already been managed within our flexible inflation targeting framework. We believe this control can be maintained. Moreover, the current depreciation of the exchange rate is driven by external factors, not internal ones. Therefore, it will not hinder economic growth nor lead to an economic collapse.
මේක අභ්‍යන්තර හේතුවක් නිසා මේ බාහිර හේතුවක් නිසා අවප්‍රමාණ වීම ආර්ථික වර්ධනයට ආර්ථිකය කඩා වැටීමට බලපාන්නේ නැහැ.
The dollar has reached 355. Just this week alone, it has increased by 20%. The rate we see in the morning is not the same by midday. It rises minute by 55. By the time I finish, it could be 365. The economy is gradually deteriorating. This must be acknowledged. When leaders stood here before, including Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa, they made similar claims to what the Deputy Minister is saying today.
මේ සභාවටයි ඔහොම තමයි ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයගේ ඔය බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂත් ඇවිල්ලා ඔය නියෝජ්‍ය ඇමතිතුමා කියන වගේම තමයි එදත් කිව්වේ ඇවිල්ලා.
ලංකාවේ ඉතිහාසයේ පළවෙනි වතාවට අපි GDP per capita එක 5000 ඉක්මවලා තියෙනවා.
For the first time in Sri Lanka's history, our GDP per capita has exceeded 5,000. We are experiencing economic growth. Are businesses closing down? Is industry collapsing? Has production fallen apart? Some speak of an economic crisis without understanding what that truly means. Exchange rate fluctuations are driven by external factors. Now we hear claims that the government will fall by May or next month. These are dreams. Whether those dreams become reality is what remains to be seen.
හැබැයි ඒ හීන යථාර්ථයක් වෙනවද නැද්ද කියන එක තමයි අපිට බලන්න තියෙන්නේ.
කරුණා කරලා ජනාධිපතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ රජය වහාම ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි IMF successor program එකක්.
I urge the President and the government to urgently move towards a successive IMF program. The IMF target requires us to maintain reserves at $14.2 billion. However, today we only have $7 billion. That is just 50%. The probability of reaching $14 billion under current conditions is extremely low. To achieve that target, we need to add $600 million every month to our reserves.
මේ සංචිත බිලියන 14 දක්වා ගෙනියන්න.
විෂම චක්‍රයකට අහු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ අපේ foreign exchange market එක.
Our foreign exchange market is trapped in a vicious cycle. Exporters are not converting their dollars into rupees, while importers are rushing to buy dollars to settle letters of credit for shipments arriving soon. If the rate rises to 375 next week, importers would prefer to secure dollars now at 355. Unfortunately, what is likely to happen is this. Interest rates may have to increase by at least 50 to 100 basis points. That is 0.5% to 1%. Otherwise, the market will not trust the government. Political statements alone will not resolve this.
කොච්චර දේශපාලන වේදිකාව කිව්වත් වැඩක් නැහැ.
රටක් විදියට රජයක් විදියට හර්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කිව්වාගේ අපි මේක පාලනය කරගන්න ඕනේ.
As a government, we agree that this situation must be managed. Establishing market stability is the key priority. Demand for dollars has increased rapidly relative to supply, leading to a temporary depreciation of the rupee. We urge the public to reduce non-essential import spending in the short term and support the national effort. We expect around $1 billion in inflows this year, which will strengthen supply. With the policy measures taken by the government and the central bank in efforts to rebuild market confidence, panic-driven import surges could lead to heavy costs and losses. If and when the rupee strengthens,
විශාල අලාභයක් දරන්න වෙනවා. එහෙම වුණොත් ඉදිරියේදී රුපියල ශක්තිමත් වීම ඇතුළේ.
Is the depreciation of the rupee contributing to an increase in Sri Lanka's external debt burden? Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe addressed this issue recently at the Committee on Public Finance in Parliament. He was responding to a question raised by MP Ravi Karunanayaka.
If you have the rupee on the present way, we are sliding from 3.2 to 3.25. Your debt stock has gone up about 1.8 trillion. Now, if you really look at September 24, your total debt to the country was 28.3. Today is 32.7. So 4.2 trillion have basically gone into debt, increasing debt in the country without a collateral asset ability in the country.
Honorable Chairman,
so
that is
part of the economic.
No, I think, Honorable Chairman, with your permission, let me. You had given me a reasonable time to explain this. I have seen this argument earlier. So this argument on depreciation of rupee by 1 rupee will increase government debt stock by 30 billion. It's only one small part of the overall picture. You look at the 1 rupee depreciation on the impact of obvious government debt stock in dollar terms. Said dollar.
Sorry, Governor, if I may just interject. No, you use that when you want to defend the balance sheet of the commercial bank.
No.
No,
I think I answered the question to Honorable Chairman. You were saying nothing to do with the currency depreciation. That is to address a mismatch of banking sector taking in terms of dollars and the rupees. That was the purpose, to ask banks to not to take too much exposure. That is a different question and different answer. This this question on appreciation or depreciation of rupee on the debt stock is a different question. Let me explain that, please, Honorable Chairman. When you look at the debt stock, for example, US dollar stock is government debt stock. We are talking about say, 30 billion US dollars. Depreciation of 1 rupee will not change the US dollar 30 billion or not a single US dollar value of debt will not be changed. Obviously, it will change the value of the debt stock in rupee terms. So, what is the purpose of borrowing in dollars and looking at in the rupee value? If you borrow a dollar, you have to earn a dollar to pay that debt. Whether rupee is 200 or 400 doesn't matter. When you are to pay the dollar, you have to earn a dollar. So that's one part. And also when dollar depreciate by 1 rupee, appreciate by, there are both sides. Exporters say 12 billion exports we are getting. Exporters getting additional 12 billion for 1 rupee depreciation. Government on the other side, you have to get government balance sheet, both the profit and loss basis and also the stock and flow. The flow of the government revenue is largely dependent on the VAT and all the import related duties. This interest import duties and related to dollar linked taxes. So there are both sides. That's why when you want to assess the external dollar loan stock, you have to look at the dollar value, not the rupee value. Is a misleading indicator, and nowhere in the world external debt is looked at in local currency terms. It has looked at in the foreign currency terms because that has to be serviced in foreign currency. Whatever rupees you have doesn't matter if you can't earn dollars to service that debt. That was the crisis that we had in the past. We don't want to get into that situation. I don't think the story about rupee depreciation increase the debt stock by so many billions. It doesn't increase any cost to the government, or it will not. It neither saves if appreciation. That doesn't save anything for the government. I mean, if you look at the dollar was 370 at some point in 2022, appreciated to close 370 rupees a dollar appreciation. Has the government got any benefit out of it? Or whether it has a debt stock, obviously has reduced in rupee terms, but not dollar terms, is almost same. I think this is the right way of looking at the government debt stock in dollar terms. Rupee terms is a different story. That's why rupee terms issued rupee securities and you service also in rupee terms. When you raise foreign loans in dollar terms, you have to service that's also in terms of either new borrowings from the government or we purchase foreign exchange on the market through dollar earnings and then we provide that dollars for the government to service that debt.
Sri Lanka's Inland Revenue Department has surpassed the milestone of collecting over 1 trillion rupees in tax revenue.
Sri Lanka's Inland Revenue Department has surpassed the milestone of collecting 1 trillion rupees in tax revenue, marking a significant achievement for the country's financial stability and public services. The IRD says that this achievement is strengthening the country's financial stability and public services. Moreover, Sri Lanka's inflation rate rose sharply to 4.7% in April 2026 on a year-on-year basis, according to official data, marking a notable increase compared to 2.4% recorded in March 2026. Year-on-year inflation in the food category moved to 1.1% in April from 0.7% recorded in March. In contrast, non-food inflation saw a significant rise, increasing to 7.8% from 3.8% over the same period.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna national organizer and MP Namal Rajapaksa says his visit to see Pilyan at the Batticaloa prison following the Easter Sunday attacks was not conducted in secrecy. He made his statement in response to details revealed by investigative teams in the ongoing court proceedings.
Through additional Solicitor General Dilip Pieris yesterday presented a comprehensive report to court outlining alleged links between Pillayan and former State Intelligence Chief Suresh Saleh in relation to the attacks. The court also recorded a statement given by Asad Maulana, former personal secretary to Pillayan, to investigators at the Sri Lankan embassy residence in France. Maulana reportedly claimed that former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa and Namal Rajapaksa visited Pillayan in prison after the attacks and informed him that he would be granted bail once Gotabaya Rajapaksa assumed power. Namal Rajapaksa responded to these claims as follows.
I did not jump over prison walls to visit Pillayan. I followed the lawful process, signed the required documents and met him according to prison procedures. A prison officer was present during the meeting. That is the law in this country. It is a serious issue if public funds are spent to travel all the way to France only to ask whether Namal Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa or Basil Rajapaksa visited Pillayan. That in itself is an abuse of public funds. Pillayan is a former chief minister and someone who engaged in politics with us during elections. During the Yahapalana government, he was arrested for political reasons and was effectively a political prisoner. If such evidence exists, it must be presented clearly before the courts. Before investigations even began, there were many claims made about international links, reports and evidence. Now is the time to present those facts before the judiciary.
Secretary of People's Tomorrow Organisation, Attorney at Law Amilegoda Mahavatta claimed that future investigations would reveal alleged links between the Sesande attacks and the political activities of the Rajapaksa family.
Among the parties facing allegations over the Easter attacks in this country, serious allegations are being levelled against the Rajapaksas. However, they have taken various positions on the matter and say that when they already had a strong possibility of winning the southern vote, there was no need to carry out an Easter attack to gain political advantage. But as citizens of this country, we cannot forget history. Representing the Attorney General, Additional Solicitor General Dileepa Piris has responsibly informed the court that this was a political conspiracy carried out with an election in mind and targeting an election. Then the question is, who was behind this conspiracy? Now we know that there is a statement made by former Minister of Public Security Tiran Alas, who is currently aligned with the Rajapaksa camp. At the time his house was bombed. I think it is worthwhile listening to that statement.
දිගටම බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂයි එමිල් කාන්දනි අතරේ මේ සාකච්ඡා පැවැත්වුවා LTT සංවිධානයේ කොහොමද මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂගේ ඡන්ද ව්‍යාපාරයට උදව් ගන්නේ කියලා. ඉතින් අන්තිමේට නොවැම්බර් මාසයේ කිට්ටු වෙන්න එනකොට බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහතා මගේ ඉදිරි පිටම දවසක් එමිල් කාන්දන්ට කිව්වා මේ අගමැතිතුමා කියනවා මේ අපේ සම්බන්ධය තහවුරු කිරීමට අපි කැමති මේ පැත්තේ මොනවාරි වැඩ කරලා දෙන්න මොනවාද අවශ්‍ය කියලා. ඉතින් අමෙරිකාන් කොහොම ඒක මම දන්නේ නැහැ මම ඔය අහලා කියන්නම් කියලා. ඒකට ඒකම කිව්වේ අපි ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ පුළුවන් නම් කොහොම හරි ඒ උතුරු නැගෙනහිර ඡන්ද වර්ජනයක් කරලා දෙන්න කියලා. එහෙම ඡන්ද වර්ජනයක් කෙරුවොත් දකුණේ ඡන්දයෙන් අනිවාර්යෙන් මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂට ජනාධිපති වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඒ පාර මේ එමිල් කාන්දන් ඊළඟ සාකච්ඡාවේදී දෙමු මේ දෙන්න හැමදාම හම්බුනේ මගේ ඔෆිස් එකේ ඉතින් මමත් එතන ඉන්නවා එමෙ කාන්දන් කොහා මේ බැසිල් ඔයා මේ එදා ඇහුවා නේද අපිට මොනවාරි ඕනේද කියලා අපිට මේ බෝස්තු වගේක් අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ ඒකට මොනවාරි උදව්ව කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඒතකොට බැසිල් එක පාට ඇහුවා මේ ඒකට කීයක් යනවද? ඉතින් මේගොල්ලන් කිව්වා ඒකට මිලියන 180ක් වැය වෙනවා. බැසිල් එක පාට කිව්වා නෑ ඒක කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ අපි ඒ මුදල් ටික දෙන්නම් කියලා ඒ සාකච්ඡාව එතනින් අවසන් වුණා. ඊට පස්සේ ආයෙ එක දවසක් බැසිල් මට කතා කරලා මම අද රැටත් එනවා අපිට මම එමිල්ටත් කිව්වා එන්න කියලා පොඩ්ඩක් හම්බ වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ පාර එමිල් කාන්දන් ඊදාරේ මගේ ඔෆිස් එකට ආවා බැසිලුත් ආවා. හැබැයි ඉතින් මම හිතපු නැති දෙයක් එදා වුණේ බැසිල් ආවේ මේ ලොකු ට්‍රැවලින් බෑග් කීපයක් අරගෙන.
There is more to this. Now this is an example from the past of how Rajapaksas did politics and elections. Clearly in history, Ranil Wickremesinghe's government was defeated because the LTTE organisation carried out an election boycott in the north. No separate evidence is needed for that. It is a truth directly witnessed by the people of this country. Even today, the Rajapaksas who survive by selling the war are the same people who use the LTTE then for their politics, for their election campaigns, for their survival. The Rajapaksas who gave money to kill the soldiers of this country and to fuel the war in this country have now left us with the question of whether the Rajapaksas are the satellites revolving around the main planet called Suresh Saleh, within this question mark surrounding the Easter Sunday attacks. Namal Rajapaksa says they did go to Batiklo to visit Pillayan in prison and that it is in the prison records. Likewise, we know that Pillayan, who until then could not get bail, came out very easily on bail with the change of government. Not only that, for the first time in the history of this country, Suresh Saleh became the head of state intelligence after coming as a military officer. Usually this happens with the promotion of a police officer. Were these Rajapaksas trying through those appointments to further prevent the real truth and secrets of the Easter attacks from coming out through Suresh Saleh? The clear allegation against Suresh Saleh is that he acted to conceal evidence relating to the Easter attacks. Because of that, we know that when the law is being implemented in this country now, many people cry out about a witch hunt on war heroes, saying war heroes are being hunted. For many people in this matter, Suresh Saleh has become a war hero because he worked for their political agendas. When people like Sarath Fonseca were imprisoned and made to wear prison uniforms, there was no concern about war heroes. But today, people like Vimal Veeravansa and Udaya Gammanpilla have suddenly developed such feelings. All these people, every one of them, are people who knowingly or unknowingly have some connection somewhere to this massive, brutal massacre called the Easter attacks. That is why this is being covered up. There is another thing that must be understood. All these allegations are not against all officers in the State Intelligence Service. These are against a handful who became tools of politicians and acted for them. The very important officers in the State Intelligence Service today who are responsible to the country, who love the country and serve, sacrificing their lives, should not feel hurt even in the slightest.
The trial against 9 military intelligence personnel, including former Giritele Army Camp Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel Shammi Karunaratne, over the abduction and disappearance of journalist Prageeth Eknalikoda, was taken up again before the Colombo Permanent High Court trial at Bar.
The case was heard at the Colombo Vijayarama Mawatha Court Complex before a 3-judge bench comprising presiding Judge Nayana Senaviratna alongside judges Nalin Hewawasam and Lakmali Hewawasam. 5 prosecution witnesses appeared before court today in accordance with notices issued on previous hearing dates. Lanka E-News editor Sandruan Senadira listed as the 59th witness testified. The evidence was led by Deputy Solicitor General Vasanta Pereira, who appeared for the Attorney General. Excerpt.
On the 24th January 2010, before Prageeth Eknalikoda disappeared, he was with us when he received continuous phone calls from the morning. I asked him whether he was planning to meet someone, and he confirmed that he was. At one point, when his phone was switched off, we called back the number that had contacted him using another person's phone. That same evening, there was a function at the Lanka E-News office, but Prageeth did not attend. He left around 7 p.m. The following day, the 25th January, after being informed by his wife Sandhya through a friend, we began searching for him. His phone was switched off. We then tried calling the same number that had previously contacted him, but that phone too was switched off. Later, through a contact at a telecom company, we learned that the signal of that number had been recorded at a tower in the Giritele area.
End of excerpt. The court also recorded the testimonies of Vasanta Srilal Ratnayaka and the 11th witness Ratnayaka Mudyanselage Aberatna. Further hearings were adjourned until the 4th of June. The Attorney General has filed charges alleging that around 25th of January 2010 or nearby dates, the accused, along with others, abducted journalist Prageeth Eknalikoda in the areas of Giritale, Habarana and Kottawa with the intent of unlawful detentions. 9 individuals, including former Giritale Army Camp Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel Shammi Kumararatna and several military intelligence officers, have been named as accused in the case.
China's establishment of bonded warehouses in Sri Lanka during the final phase of the conflict enabled immediate access to military supplies and played a decisive role in the country's war effort. This is according to Admiral Professor Jainath Kolambage, former commander of the Sri Lankan Navy.
Now, these comments were made during the launch of the book From Friendship to Dependency, Analyzing Sri Lanka's Foreign Policy Making Towards China, authored by Dr. Bhagya Senaratna.
Now, during this period of our war, different countries help us at different times. India, America, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, Pakistan, to name a few. Now, there were some restrictions too. There were some restrictions. Some countries imposed a non-lethal weapon supply ban. That means they didn't want to give us lethal weapons. Now, how do we fight a war without lethal weapons? We need to destroy the enemy. So some countries gave us non-lethal support, right? Training. Now, one example is one country would give us a warship without weapons. Right? That's how things happen. Some countries had embargoes. Sometimes we bought weapons, but we couldn't buy ammunition. Right? That was the situation at that time. But there was one country which provided us arms, ammunition, artillery pieces, mortars, radars, armored vehicles, battle tanks, aircraft, ships. And that was China. Now, China became our main defense supplier, especially during the period 2006 to 2009. Of course, Chinese military things were there even much earlier, starting from like 1971. But this period, 2006 to 2009, became crucial. Now, China went to the extent of establishing a bonded warehouse in the port of Colombo and another one in port of Galle. That means we could just go there with a letter of authorization from the Ministry of Defense. It's like carrying a shopping list, going to a weapons supermarket. You buy, practically you don't even buy, you collect what you want and then go and use it, pay later, right? I don't know whether any other country has done something like this in another country, I'm not sure. But here, they went to the extent of establishing a bonded warehouse. That means they bring all the items to that warehouse and we go and collect it. China's military equipment support became paramount in winning the 30-year-old war. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at that time, we did not have a single highway. 2009 I'm talking about. We did not have a single highway. Katunayaka Colombo Expressway was built and completed in 2013 after ending the war. Southern Expressway was completed in 2011. Then, of course, Norochole power plant was built and operated in 2011. Of course, Mattala Airport mentioned 2013. Colombo International Container Terminal 2011. So all these things actually happened in that period between after 2009. So how did China become our main development partner? This is how versatility of Chinese enterprises carried forward. All those companies who were in Colombo providing weapons instantly became construction companies. Instantly, right? So that was a huge advantage for China because they were already here. They had their offices here. And also we know majority of Chinese enterprises are state-owned, right? They are not only thinking of profit. They will work based on the directives they're receiving from the central government of China. So within no time, these companies which were providing weapons to Sri Lanka became construction companies. So that was quickly they became our development partner.
To celebrate International Tea Day and the Sri Lanka's Tea Board's 50th anniversary, the first ever Ceylon Tea Walk took place in Colombo today.
The inaugural event, spearheaded by the Sri Lanka Tea Board, marked a powerful moment of industry-wide unity, celebrating the sector's historical resilience while mapping out a shared vision for the future.
What makes this walk so special is that it has brought together individuals from every single tier of contribution to the Sri Lankan tea industry. From company executives to exporters to brokers to ground-level tea harvesters, everyone is gathered here today in unison to celebrate Ceylon tea.
The closing ceremony at Golface Green paired traditional cultural performances with an innovative Ceylon tea mixology showcase, spotlighting how Sri Lanka is reimagining its iconic brew for a modern global audience. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tea Board, Raju Besekara, commented on the event.
And it is very significant as we have managed to get the entire segment, all the stakeholders, to participate in this event with the vim and vigor and vitality which I expected from the entire trade, and that made this event a success. What is most important is that all of us got together with a sense of pride to be here today, and that's important to the entire industry. Because collective responsibility when it comes to an industry is very vital, and it was shown in no uncertain terms today.
At the event, key industry representatives highlighted the need to support the foundation of the supply chain to face future challenges.
This tea industry begins with the growers. If the growers do not produce a high-quality leaf today, we wouldn't even be able to have any of these conversations. Furthermore, a vast labour force depends on us for their livelihood. We are very grateful for bringing all stakeholders together today. This is the era for such collaboration. Today is also a time when tourism is highly discussed. So I believe that in the next phase, we can offer something even greater to the world.
As the event concluded at Golface Green, the message to the international market was clear. Marking 50 years of institutional oversight, Sri Lanka is looking to modernize its tea industry for the future while highlighting the unique heritage and origin of Ceylon tea.
Under the theme Building a Stronger Sri Lanka Together, Global Unites launched a nationwide youth initiative aimed at promoting unity, justice, healing and reconciliation through a new national policy framework.
Global Unites launched a nationwide initiative under the theme Building a Stronger Sri Lanka Together, aimed at promoting youth empowerment, national unitations, stakeholder discussions and youth engagement programs designed to encourage reconciliation and prevent the recurrence of ethnic and religious tensions in Sri Lanka. The final policy framework is expected to be presented later this year, with recommendations focused on building a stronger, more inclusive and united Sri Lanka for future generations.
So right now we've launched our nationwide national survey of young people from all 25 districts. We are working on nearly 2,500 young people who will be responding to hear their grievances, their aspirations, their challenges, what the mindset of Gen Z and millennials are. We're trying to understand that through this survey. We're also doing consultations in all 9 provinces, and we're looking to hear from young people there as well, more in-depthly about the concerns that they have. And also hear about how extremist groups are trying to brainwash them to hate another, fear another, maybe even justify violence against the other, how that's already happening.
Working mothers and industry leaders came together today at the Mom Leaders Conference 2026, a day-long event focused on leadership, inclusion and empowering mothers in the workplace.
The Mom Leaders Conference 2026 brought together working mothers, professionals and change makers for discussions centered on leadership, workplace inclusion and navigating the evolving demands of the modern workforce. Sessions focused on career development, mentorship, emotional resilience and adapting to an increasingly AI-driven professional environment. The event also recognized organizations promoting mom-inclusive workplaces while celebrating women leaders making an impact across various industries. The conference concluded with networking sessions and renewed calls for stronger support systems to help mothers succeed both professionally and personally.
Weather first.
Viniji, as the southwest monsoon gradually establishes itself across Sri Lanka, what changes can be expected in the upcoming weather conditions?
Well, yes, Joanne, we have Sandro Ferdinando in the studio today to bring us the latest on the current weather situation.
Thank you once again, Vinuji. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. So the Department of Meteorology says that the southwest monsoon conditions is gradually establishing over the island. And according to the Met Department, showers will occur at times in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and in Galle and Matara, Kandy, Nuwara districts as well. Now, fairly heavy falls, about 75 millimeters, are likely at some places in these areas. As you can see, a few showers will occur in the North Province and in the Anuradhapura district as well. Showers or thunder showers may occur at a few places in Uva Province and in Ampara and Batticaloa districts after 2 p.m. and at times over western slopes of the Central Hills. Northern, North Central, Northwestern and Southern provinces and in Trincomalee district. Now, the Met Department has urged the public to take adequate precautions to minimize the damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during these thunder showers.
Cyclone Detwa struck harder than we ever imagined. But we moved into action even faster than the force of the disaster itself. Relief. We did not stop at providing relief. Recovery. Our mission was to restore and rebuild their livelihoods. Rebuild with proper training and certification. Beneficiaries in the Nuwara district were empowered with sewing machines, laptops, and other essential tools. Gammatha. Rebuild Sri Lanka.
Jawad, what's the latest happening in the Middle East?
Vinuji, Iran is currently reviewing Washington's response to a proposed ceasefire, while Pakistan will be in Tehran for peace talks. Onil Kamarathunga brings us the latest on this.
Yes, thank you, Jawad and Vinuji. Now, what are the latest developments in the Middle East? Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei said Tehran was reviewing Washington's latest response to a proposed ceasefire framework after several rounds of message exchanges mediated by Pakistan. The statement comes during which Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Azim Munir is set to visit Tehran today. Let's take a look at the latest developments unfolding in the Middle East.
Iran says it is examining the latest position taken by Washington on ending its war after US President Donald Trump said he could be ready to wait a few days to get the right answers. According to the Iranian, we have received US views and are reviewing them. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Azim Munir is set to visit Tehran today. Iran's ISNA news agency said Munir would hold talks and consultations with Iranian authorities. Munir's visit comes after Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi travelled to Iran yesterday and held talks with President Masoud Pezeshkian and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Meanwhile, Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khomeini has issued a directive that the country's near-weapons-grade uranium not be sent abroad. This order hardens Tehran's stance on one of the main US demands at peace talks and could further frustrate US President Donald Trump and complicate negotiations to end the war. According to one of the unnamed sources, the directive and the consensus within the establishment is that the stockpile of enriched uranium should not leave the country. The sources said that top Iranian officials believe sending the material abroad would leave the country more vulnerable to future attacks by the United States and Israel.
US President Donald Trump says he will break with decades of diplomatic protocol to speak directly with Taiwan's president about a massive multi-billion-dollar arms deal, a move that has already drawn a sharp warning from Beijing.
US President Donald Trump says he plans to speak directly with Taiwan's leader, Lai Ching-te. The talk will be about a possible weapons sale, which goes against long-standing diplomatic rules. Leaders from the US and Taiwan have not spoken directly since 1979. That was the year the US cut formal ties with Taiwan to recognize the Chinese government in Beijing instead. China views Taiwan as its own territory and has threatened to take it by force. While the US tries to maintain good relations with China, a US law passed in 1979 says Washington must still give Taiwan weapons for self-defense. Trump has broken these rules before. In 2016, before officially taking office, he took a phone call from Taiwan's then leader, Tsai Ing-wen, which drew a strong reaction from China. Taiwan's current president, Lai Ching-te, took power in 2024 and has been working hard to build up the island's defense. China's foreign ministry quickly spoke out against the potential call. A spokesperson said China is strongly against any official talks or weapon sales between the US and Taiwan, telling the US to stop sending the wrong signals to forces that want Taiwan to separate from China. Trump says he has not yet decided if he will approve the $14 billion arms package for Taiwan, which reportedly includes anti-drone equipment and air defense missile systems.
And that's a wrap of your news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.